All right, boys and girls, we're back and we are going to be practicing rounding to the nearest 10, just like we did yesterday. So let's go over our nifty little poem over here that's going to help us remember if we're keeping the number on the floor or if we're rounding up the line. Sing it with me. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, keep that number on the floor. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, round that number up the line. Okay, in front of you, you should have your template over here. We're going to first write our name at the top, so go ahead and write your name. I will write mine. And the first thing that we need to do is read the directions. So, read them out loud with me. Round to the nearest 10. Which place value are we rounding to? You got it. The place value in the tens. So put a box around that right now. We are rounding to the tens place. So all these numbers are going to have a box in the tens place. Let's start with number 1. Number 1 is 73. The first step is to put a box around the place value that we are rounding. So I know that I'm rounding in my tens place. Let's go ahead together and put a box around the 7 in the tens place. Now I need to decide if I'm keeping this number that I've just boxed on the floor or if it's going to round up the line. And to do that, I need to look next door. Go ahead and draw a little arrow next door. And next door I have the number 3. Is the number 3 0, 1, 2, 3, 4? Keep that number on the floor. Or 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Round that number up the line. Right, that's over here in the keep the number on the floor. So remember, this bossy little number is going to say, or tell this number to stay on the floor, which means it's going to stay the same. Let's go ahead and keep our tens place the same at 7. And now our ones place is going to change because anything that comes after this number is going to change to a 0. So let's put a 0 in our ones place. The number 73 rounded to the nearest 10 is 70. Number 2, we have the number 95. Ooh, this one's going to be tricky. This one we're going to have to kind of think of those benchmark numbers. 95 comes in between 90 and 100. Keep that in mind. So the first thing that we need to do is put a box around our tens place. This is the number that we are rounding. All right, now let's look next door. Put a little arrow to our ones place. This number, is it 1, 2, 3, or 4? No. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9? Yup. Round that number up the line. So, here's where the tricky part comes. What comes after the number 9? You got it, the number 10. So this 9 is going to change to a 10. And anything after, we are going to turn to a 0. So in our ones place, it's going to become a 0. What number did we just make? 100. Very good. 95 rounded to the nearest 10 is actually 100. Our next number, number 3. Our next number says 64. Remember, we are rounding to the nearest 10, so let's go ahead and put a box around our tens place, and I see that I have a 6 in the tens place. Let's go next door to decide if we are going to keep that number on the floor or round up the number line. The number 4 tells us that we need to keep the tens place on the floor, which means we're going to keep it the same. So the number 6 in the tens place doesn't change. Go ahead and write the number 6. But anything that comes after that number turns to what? You got it, a 0. So the number 64, rounded to the nearest 10, becomes 60. Number 4, we have the number 77. We're going to round to the nearest 10. So the first thing we need to do is put a box around the tens place. We're going to look next door to decide if we're going to keep it on the floor or round it up the number line. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Keep that number on the floor. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Round that number up the line. I see a 7 here, so we're going to round this tens place up the line. 8 comes after the number 7, so in my tens place, that 7 is going to change to an 8, and anything after that number becomes a what? A 0. You got it. So the number 77, rounded to the nearest 10, is 80. All right, the next 3 are going to be 3-digit numbers, but we are still rounding to the nearest 10. So number 5, the number 837, the first thing that we need to do is put a box around the tens place. Go ahead and put a box around the number 3 in our tens place. Now we're going to look next door to decide if we're going to round that 3 and keep it on the floor or round the number up the line. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, round that number to the floor. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, round that number up the line. What is this number? You got it, it's a 7, which means that we need to round this number in our tens place up the number line. What comes after 3 on the number line? You got it, a number 4. So, remember I told you last time, we don't change anything in the hundreds place. It stays the same. So keep the 8 in the hundreds place. We decided that this 3 is going to round up the number line, so 3 is going to change to a 4. And anything after is going to become a 0. So go ahead and put a 0 in our ones place. The number 837 rounded to the nearest 10 is 840. Let's keep going. Number 6 says 205. What place value are we rounding? Yes, we're rounding in the tens place. The first thing we need to do is put a box or a square around our tens place here, which is a 0. All right, now we need to look next door. We have a 5. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Keep that number on the floor. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Round that number up the line. So we are going to be rounding our place value up the number line. Remember, we do not touch our hundreds place. Our hundreds place is going to stay the same. So let's write a 2 in our hundreds place. Now, this 0 is going to round up the number line. What comes after 0? Right, we're going to round up to a 1. And anything after becomes a 0. So let's put a 0 in our ones place. The number 205, rounded to the nearest 10, is 210. Let's do one more. Number 7 says 416. What are we rounding to? The tens place. Very good. Put a box around our tens place. I see a 1. We need to look next door. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Round that number to the floor. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Round that number up the line. This 6 is going to round this to the next number. We do not touch our hundreds place, so write the number 4 for our hundreds. The number 1 is going to round up the number line, so that's going to change to a 2, and anything after is going to become a 0. So the number 416 rounded to the nearest 10 is 420.